Hello, I'm Joe with Photomatthew Studios, and welcome to what I believe will be the second episode of my little photo book club. And today I'm going to talk about a local book, which is really nice, straight from Northampton. It came out a couple of weeks ago alongside an exhibition at the Mayfair Gallery, and it is Place Where We Dwell, Chapter 1 by Gavin Wallace. It's part of a 4-part series. This is Chapter 1. It's taken 5 years to produce, documenting people who are part of the Northamptonshire community who are doing important things or just interesting characters in general, and he sort of photographed them over the years, shooting portraits, environmental portraits, and well, yeah, those two things. But and it's a really interesting project to see, and I bought the book at the exhibition, and it's a really nice quality book, square format, quite a small size soft cover. It kind of rides the line between being a zine and a book, but I think the quality of the paper and things, I'd say a book. But yeah, so we have a short introduction to the project and sort of how he's been in Northampton and sort of wants to make people feel proud and be creative, and sort of this was his way of doing it as a photographer. It started with one of the biggest portraits at the exhibition of Felicia Ngoma, who was a nurse who he saved from her overflooding sink or something, or it says water pouring from the kitchen ceiling, and he stopped the flow, and then he got talking to her about her life in Cape Town and moved to the UK, and then he took the photograph of her, and that sort of was the start of the series, and here she is herself. The photo on the left was the one that was exhibited, and it's a really striking portrait of full eye contact, but I really like this one that was featured in the book of her laughing and smiling. It kind of harkens back to what I was on about in the last video in this series that you should also go check out, which was about Araki and Nan Golding's Tokyo Love, where Araki talks about sort of finding the joy in photographs and sort of not being afraid to show smiling faces and stuff, and which is still refreshing to see, as people tend to lean to these more serious looking photographs, and that was the one that was played in the exhibition, as this one was deemed not hide it in a book, but as a second, like a B-side, you know, even though I do really like this portrait of her. The pages are very thick as well. I love the quality of this book. And that brings us to the second portrait, the second person in the series, which is Steve Cador, who owns a fashion shop in Northampton called Driver that gone for many years, since the 80s, and he's sort of this quite an influential figure in the town of just being this guy who's doing it. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But it was really nice to sort of see him on display and stuff. It was really cool. And there's quite a few of him in the book, which I really like as well. Another one of these studio portraits that I believe Gavin shot of everyone, and then these environmental ones as well. And sort of, I love that there's a shot in Driver as well, sort of. It's a good, awesome chairs as well. It sort of captures it really nicely. Everyone, Adriana. Again, the left shot was at the exhibition, a square format shot, which is quite interesting, the format and the crops being used a bit creatively, and every photo seems to be slightly different, but all really effective, and this shot was super cool to see, like printed nice, and the colours were really strong, especially this orange pink window frame of her shop outside. Laura from The Happy Hood, she produces one of a local zine that sort of spreads happy news about the town, which is quite nice, as sometimes you read the newspapers about Northampton, it's not so positive. So she's made a really massive difference over the last couple of years, and she's I've never met her personally. I've crossed paths briefly, maybe once or twice, but really cool person, and it's really cool to see these portraits put up. Again, the left one was the one that was exhibited, and it's really seeing the full print on the wall is really striking, as she really, it's hard to define, but she really stood out in the portrait, and it's not necessarily a depth of field separating thing or anything. There was just something about the quality, like she really sort of stood out photographically. And I really like this one as well, which is taken outside a coffee shop in town, a local one as well, that I believe supplies her zine as well, and it's a really cool shot too. This guy I don't know much about, but he seems to go by the name Death House, even though his full name was attached to the exhibition print. This was the one at the exhibition, this one's been used in the book, but I have seen his work. He sort of etches into leaves and stuff, and I've seen them at the Abington Museum, which I believe is where the shot is taken, because I've seen that cabinet, and it used to be full with all these little sort of animals and all sorts of horrible stuff, but it's really cool work, and it's really nice to see it highlighted, someone who's just sort of doing their own thing and sort of has a craft, you know what I mean, being celebrated. And talking of craft, with Michael James, who makes the lasts for shoes, and that's what the town's known for. It's nicknamed Shoe Town, and it's nice to see it celebrated. The core of the town is still going, and those people celebrated for what they do and stuff. Abby Jackson. This print was one of my favourites in the exhibition. A really big, one of the only massive environmental portraits, and it's one of the ones that sort of the book almost doesn't do it justice. As when you see it in person, you pick out all these tiny details, like there was like a washer on the floor down here, or just a little thimble on the table, and it really sort of had so much going on, but still so much control that it didn't lose focus, but also just so much you could come back to and look and be like, oh, look at the rugs and all the little things. And that's kind of the interesting thing about it when you see it on such a large scale. As if you saw this on Instagram, it would be like, oh, it's a tiny person, scroll. You know, because I felt like Instagram leans towards a certain sort of thing where they want up close, it wants to be in your face. As this sort of having a big format and in her environment, you sort of makes you come back to it and notice all the little things and really appreciate it, which is really nice. And I think that's important for photographers to consider. It's like, or you can make work for Instagram, do what you want, but also like remember not to overlook these things as well. Like, and I think Instagram has had a big impact on sort of photographic composition, as we're always looking on a small phone, so you need much closer to get all the details across. Like, detail shots are much more popular now than sort of, if you look at someone like Ansel Adams, some of his compositions, when you look at them on a phone, really don't work, but when you see them how they're meant to be, it really does. And this lady seems like a cool character as well. She works at has a studio in Northampton, and this is the first I've heard of her, but just from these photographs, a character comes through, you know, and she seems like a very cool person. And we have Alan Moore, who I didn't know was from Northampton, and that was fun to find out, but he's known for writing Watchmen and I believe The Killing Joke and V for Vendetta as well, but he's a very interesting writer, and he just looks like an interesting character just from these pictures, and it really comes across. I love this photo of him in his shot. This was the exhibition one with all his rings on his hand and these books in the background and stuff, and it kind of really gives you a sense of who this person is. Billy Lockett. This was another great one in the exhibition that really stood out because of this blue wall and these colours really in your face. The printing on the exhibition was phenomenal. And sort of, he's a songwriter in Northampton, and he's been on James Corden's Light Show, and he's just immensely talented. And as well, it's really nice to see sort of him in his home, and I know that these paintings are by his dad, and as some of these paintings are used for one of a local band's cover, and I can kind of see the style being the same. So it's really interesting just to get all this story tied together. This was the exhibition print, it's a lot more. And I'm noticing a pattern, and I don't think it's Gavin's fault, I think it's just photography in general, where it's like this one that was selected, quite a somber expression, is this one where he's laughing and being happy was not selected. And I do think, even take the facial expression out, this is a stronger image. Oh, excuse me for destroying the page, but it's just nice to see smiling faces. Maybe it's just me. Speaking of smiling faces, again here, exhibition print, Angry, which I mean, I know, for fuck's sake, why though? And she's a grime artist, she has attitude, so I think it does fit her in this case. And this laughing one, it's a still nice shot, but and a studio shot as well, and different from all the other studio shots in the exhibition, so I can also see it from that angle. For fuck's sake, why though? Shout out, I'm not wearing a shirt today, but maybe in another video I will, Bill. John Daly owns a boxing club. These are really cool environmental portraits, and I like that, I believe these are shot digitally, but there has a lot of film aesthetic to it. It almost matches the aesthetic of HP5 perfectly, even down to like the greys almost being like this bluey green colour. It's like, it really feels like a film photo, and it kind of really brings it out. And I think the selection to say I'm going to do black and white now makes perfect sense given the content. Again, sad face, happy face. Not to hark on it too much, but it's just a pattern I've noticed within general photography. But yeah, I really do like this. And I think as well, you may have noticed throughout the book, there is a range of styles, and I think that's because it's this project took 5 years, which is impressive. Like, just to constantly be working on something and just being like, okay, we're almost there. And now in 5 years, he's only on chapter 1 of a 4-part series. rad. So I'm not surprised the style jumps around, and it's sort of it's a nice reflection of. I'm not sure whether these are displayed chronologically. I know the first photo is the first photo, but it's nice to see maybe his stylistic choices changing throughout the years, and him sort of, it gives you an idea of the photographer as well as the subjects as well, which comes through, which is always nice. Oh, these two were awesome. These two were at the exhibition. They were kind of, I didn't speak to one, but they seemed cool. And they're YouTubers. They make videos, and they're young as well. I think he's 8 in this photo, and she's 11 by these. I'm not sure how long ago these were, but it's really cool that, like, Gavin's not discriminating. It feels like it doesn't matter whether, if you're doing something, he's kind of like, yeah, that's cool, come on, let's get the photo. And these kind of kids that are really doing something really impressive, you know, they're getting views, they're making content. It's awesome to see, and these portraits are really cool as well. Emil Zahiri. I've seen his shop. I didn't know who he was. He's hidden, but he owns a vape shop in Northampton. There's a couple other ones around the area, but he seems like a cool character. And I love this shot as well. It's kind of a homage to that famous Biggie Smalls shot, I think, but I think it really fits for this guy being like an entrepreneur and the quote-unquote king of vape. And it's a very cool shot to see, and it's quite playful, but still sort of gets the message across really well. Okay, we're back. And a perfect place to leave off. This, once again, the left was the exhibition print. This was in the window. I like it. I think it's really cool, but I do so much prefer this shot. When I saw this in the book, I was like, this is one of my favourite ones in the series. Not to call into question the choice of the exhibition, but I do really love the energy in it, and sort of her character comes through so well, and sort of in where she works as well. I just really, I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I do just love images of people having fun and things like that, and it's nice to see, especially with this exhibition being so soon after COVID, that you know, people are where they're meant to be, and just seeing people living life is really nice. This one, there's some like really heavy portraits here. This Richard White, who was a canning foreman at Carlsberg, which is like one of the biggest factories in town. The beer company and things like that. But he's, I believe, recently passed away. Oh yeah, 2017. So that print up there is kind of similar to the one with the guy from Driver, where it's quite impactful, and it's sort of like that idea of Nan Goldin gives, where it's like images only really have their meaning once people are gone, which is kind of a sad truth of photography, but it kind of brings so much weight into this portrait and looking at him here. And then on the other side, you have a very young person who's sort of just starting their story. So these kind of nicely contrast each other in the book. This kid called Alex, who's enrolled at an MMA gym. We don't get much more than that, but it's kind of like, you know, it's someone doing something. That comes back to the idea that Gavin's not discriminating as such, and he finds it interesting in everyone, which is really nice to see. And he's not sort of just hunting down the best and more famous people. He's kind of genuinely does it for the individual. Moriarty, again, a mix of environmental and studio coming through here, which is a personal trainer, and sort of, yeah, just a really striking portrait, especially with these eyes in this one, and it really stood out in the gallery when you looked at it. Oh, hi, Sarah. This is Sarah Martin, one of the actually the gallery owner. Not at the time of this shot, I believe. I think she was just focusing on her art at this period. It's really awesome portrait though, with the mask and stuff, and it really sort of adds, just the use of the prop adds so much to it, and the background is one of her paintings as well. It's really awesome one to see in there. I want to know what she felt like opening an exhibition with a photo of her on the wall, which must be quite a surreal one. But yeah, either way, awesome. And her work's awesome as well, but I don't know whether she has a book out, so we're probably not going to talk about her stuff too much. And also, I'm a photographer, not a painter, so I don't know what I'd have to say. This one's really well called Ned Dillon. He's a radio host. He's a really interesting story that he like started when he was 14, had this track go a bit viral, and now he's like received lots of praise from radio stations and people, and sort of done festivals. And he's at 18, and he's a radio host, like really interesting. And an interesting portrait as well. It's kind of similar to that one of the young boy who's a YouTuber, like these neon lights coming in, which is stylistically different from the other studio portraits. And again, it comes back to, it's a 5-year project, so it's kind of, I think it would be almost impossible to run a project for that long without having different styles come in. It sort of gives you an insight into Gavin as well. I think I've just noticed as well with this photo, it seems like it was shot when it was raining, unless this is some sort of fence or something, I'm not sure, but it looks like rain coming around. I really like the addition of the dog as well. I think that kind of gives you an insight, and the chair's just, it's a very cool chair. It kind of gives a bit of character as well. Must have been heavy to take outside there. And I believe this is the last portrait of the book. At the end you just have the thank you section, which is always nice to see. It talks about where it was printed at print 7. Really fucking good quality, honestly. But and the thank you to all the people involved and their information of where you can find them and what they do and stuff, which is really cool that he kind of gives the shout outs to these people and things. And then have the back cover, simple. So that was Gavin Wallace's chapter 1 to his long running series, because there's meant to be 4 chapters, so it's going to hopefully be in total. I think the plan is to release the next chapters year after year after year, so maybe in another 4 years we'll have the next 3 out, or the next 3 years even, but this has been chapter 1 and it's starting off. I can't wait to get the next ones. But yes, thank you for watching. If you're watching on Patreon, you're watching it a week early, so lucky you, but thank you for supporting. And if you're watching on YouTube as well, thank you for supporting as well, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode.